If during this podcast as well, we could all try not to talk over each other. I know that's a big ask.
That's a good one,
That's a
Spunk.
bad
That's a good. Don't call me Spunk.
Spunk is too far.
Spank.
No.
Spank was too far.
Spank
No,
is
Spank is
definitely
too
too far.
far.
Spank and Spunk is too
Spink.
far. Spink is not good. We don't use that word.
I like Spink.
What about Spock?
Look,
Spock is fine.
No,
Don't call me Spock.
Spock.
why not?
shut up,
Spock is fine.
Spock.
No.
It's not logical
Have an
to call him
emotion,
Spock.
Spock.
I don't know if you're talking to me or the character from Star Wars.
Hello and welcome to That's right. Rock me, baby. Baby. Rock me, baby. Baby. That's right. Baby, 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 baby.
Let's talk about Pokemon who have lots of porn on Pixie.
yeah, that thing.
So this is not the amount of porn that they have, it's in proportion to the amount of pictures that they have, how many of them are porn.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
If the
That
number
makes
one
more sense.
Pokemon has just like 3 pictures, then, you know, it's easy to get the porn ratio up.
There's one very, very dedicated, I'll use the word fan loosely, of Rotom, who's very, very dedicated to
I'm
his
very
art.
shaken by this, you know, because I'd not seen the image, I'd just heard the ratings of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I've never seen
And
porn
I
of this
didn't
thing.
realise that there were 2 different forms of Rotom in this. And
Yeah.
the way I thought about it was like, okay, I guess they've made like a dildo Rotom or some shit like that. But no,
Nope.
it's 2 of the forms, so they must have porn in this form specifically,
Mhm.
and that's very jarring to me.
Isn't it?
Specifically, the numbers on this are that 42.28% of pictures on Pixiv of the washing machine Rotom are pornography of that washing machine
Wow.
Rotom, and 38.38% is that a microwave or a toaster?
It's an oven.
It's an
a
oven.
I think it's
Yeah.
heater, I think is what they call it.
Okay,
Heat
so
form.
that
I don't know, I don't
Rotom.
care for Rotom.
Other ones to note are Hypno and Machoke, in the number 2 and number 3 spots for 40% porn to image ratio and 39% porn to image ratio.
Machode.
Definitely the Machode.
You people did this to me.
Tips foreskin, Machode.
Machode.
Fuck's sake.
Nice. Good meme.
I'm surprised that Low Punny's not higher.
I think the way it's
No,
been
no,
calculated is it's the amount of images that have this tag, so the tag for the Pokemon plus the R18 tag, which is indicative that the picture contains porn, I guess.
Maybe this washing machine fella is just in the background of all of the Pokemon porn that's ever been produced.
Maybe.
I think the thing with the Rotoms is, like, they're not particularly appealing looking Pokemon, so it's going to be very few people who are drawing them anyway. So
Yeah.
if there's one person drawing porn of them, then it's just going to boost the numbers. The more surprising ones are things like Machoke, where it's like, a lot
Really?
of people would draw Machoke, I feel, but a lot of that's porn as well, which
I mean,
is...
it's the Bara thing, isn't it? Like big
Yeah.
muscly guys.
Which ones
Yeah, I
are you
guess.
most surprised to see in this?
Like, what's Illumise doing down there? Is it Illumise
Yeah.
or Volby? Illumise at number 29. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Why is that there? I mean, I guess it looks kind of girly, but...
What's the big fat
got a
cat?
trendy
Is that
haircut.
Purloin?
Purugly?
Purugly, yeah.
I wouldn't want to see porn of that.
I
I'm
mean,
kind of surprised by how the fact that some of the super new ones
yeah, they've got a
are
lot
in
of...
this top 50.
yeah.
Like the
But it's
Ultra Beasts.
ratio, not numbers, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm
true.
surprised that Lucario is so far down.
Yeah, that's another one.
But
Hate
that's because there's
Lucario.
going to be a lot of images of Lucario that aren't porn because people
Yeah.
just
Oh,
like
no.
Lucario because he's
Yeah,
such a
'cause,
big...
like,
What's the number 26? Diggersby, is it?
Bunnelby.
Diggersby? Specifically that?
Yeah.
Why? Don't quite get that one.
Well, you
It
know,
might
you've
be-
got that thing in Japan where, like, the fat man has sex with the attractive young
the fat
person.
faceless
Maybe he's
guy
the
for
fat
that.
man.
The fat faceless guy.
Yeah, but if you're having a
bunny.
bunny theme, then you may as well go
Yeah,
for
maybe.
that with the low punny, you know.
That's true.
What surprises me is number 12, because I don't even remember that guy.
Mudsdale.
Mudsdale, yeah.
I can see why he would be.
It's a horse lad.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
you
most
of
of the
all
time,
people, I'm sure.
People will go for either Ponyta or Rapidash if they want to draw a Pokemon
But if you
horse.
want a big, like, male-looking horse with a big male horse dick, I'd go for this guy. Look at him. He must have a
You're not
schlong
wrong.
the size of my arm.
I mean, you've had a lot of time for Ponyta and Rapidash to get like lots of normal art.
Yeah, true.
It's
And-
probably quite an honor, like when new Pokemon get announced, to be the first person to draw porn of them.
I mean, it must happen immediately, right? Maybe it's more of an achievement to be a Gen 1 Pokemon and be on this list,
I
considering
think
you have no
definitely,
Gen 1.
yeah.
But then
That's
again,
true.
what the fuck is
So
like
congrats,
Nidoqueen
Hypno.
doing at number 5?
Oh, you have no idea how famous Nidoqueen is, how popular she is.
I know now thanks to the other podcast, but otherwise I wouldn't have guessed no.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Nidoqueen is that popular.
Like, I'm surprised there's not. I guess Pikachu's just like a popular mascot, so it's going to get lots of art regardless,
Yeah.
and then a small proportion of it is porn.
Yeah.
Maybe
What
something
we're
like
really
that.
looking at here are what are the like most niche Pokemon. God, a fucking washing machine. What are you gonna
Who
do when
wouldn't wanna fuck a washing
when
machine?
the
I mean,
Pocket
it's-
Monster Manual gets to that?
You can sit on top of a washing machine.
Yeah, it does have some sort of hose. I wonder if that can be set to suck.
And I mean, the oven looks pretty hot.
If you'd like to hear more of us talking about sexy Pokemon, then you can listen to our other podcast, The Pocket Monster Manual, exclusive to our YouTube channel.
The Pokama Sutra.
Hello and welcome to Gentlemen Discussing Video. Today with me I have Catsman,
Hiyo!
Mooglepies,
I'm still here.
Rustyheadphones,
Hola.
ShinyMissingno,
Hello.
Woolyshambler,
Oh shit, what up?
and I didn't introduce myself, I'm Specs.
It's
We-
pronounced Spink.
Please, just respect my name for a change, everyone.
Respects.
Respects me.
Just a little respects.
I feel like, what do we want to talk about first? We could talk about, leading on from that Pokemon discussion, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the movie, which I know we want to talk about a bit.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Do we want to
It's-
do spoilers, or do we just want to do general impressions?
I would rather do general impressions, at least partially, because like the spoilers aren't that important, but also you can talk about everything you want to talk about in this movie without getting into them, so
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah,
not
true.
necessary.
Fair.
It was good.
Is it the first good video game movie?
There's the Phoenix Wright movie.
Phoenix Wright.
That's also true.
Oh, that's also pretty good, yeah. But the first Western one, maybe.
First high-profile one, yeah.
I'd put this on about the same level as the Phoenix Wright movie. It is an entertaining and weird and eccentric movie, surprisingly. Like, it's not like high art or anything, but
it knows what it is, right?
Yeah, it knows exactly what it is and what it has to be. It's not afraid of having like a weird vibe, and it's not afraid of like acknowledging how contrived its own premise is, but it doesn't care. It's just like, yeah, so there's a Pikachu and it talks, and there's a city with all the Pokemon, and look, just accept it, okay? We're moving on. We're going to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just good. It was a fun film to watch. While there were some issues with the plot and stuff, it didn't really matter that much. It didn't make it like a bad film or anything. It was still fun to watch and see what they did, and just kind of seeing what they did with the Pokemon as well was really cool. The opening scene is really good because it shows in that one scene that the writers of the movie actually give a shit about the games. Because, like, there's a scene basically with a Cubone, and all of the stuff about the Cubone is just ripped straight out of the Pokedex entries, which is great. Like, they directly reference Pokedex entries in it.
A few of the jokes made me laugh out loud.
There was one in particular that was very funny that I remember laughing out loud in the cinema.
I've never previously been a particularly big fan of Bulbasaur, but now I am. It was the fucking cutest one in the entire thing, in my onion.
Yeah,
It
it was pretty good.
very, very cute. And I did actually like Mr. Mime a lot as well.
Yeah,
funny.
I thought the Mr. Mime scene was
The Mr.
funny.
Mime
Mime's very funny.
Daddy.
Daddy. The Daddy Mime scene was really good because while they showed some of it in the trailers and they showed some quite funny parts of it in the trailers, there's a lot more to it in the film that you haven't seen already, and the best parts are in the film and weren't shown in the trailers necessarily.
That's good in my opinion. Don't show everything in the trailers. I hate that.
Yeah.
It knows which Pokemon are cute and which Pokemon are just weird, and it really leans into like, yeah, this Pokemon's weird. Okay, like Ditto. Ditto's fucked up.
And like the licky tongue.
I like
Jigglypuff.
Lucky Tongue.
Just going around licking people.
Is it only Gen 1 Pokemon in it?
No. But I feel like it's majority Gen 1 Pokemon. Thinking about what I remember being in the film, there's a lot of Gen 1, even just background character Pokemon. So I think they're definitely trying to appeal to the older Pokemon fans with that.
In the theater, what I noticed was it was either people in their mid-20s or children. And it's interesting because that is also reflected in the demographics of the Pokemon in the film. There's either really quite recent Pokemon or there's like Gen 1 Pokemon, but there's nothing from like the middle.
Some from Gen 5 are in there, I know.
There's
Yeah.
Ludicolo in it. He's like in the middle.
He's Gen 3, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, he's like the only one. It's all Gen 1 or Gen 5 beyond, I think. There's not even that many, like, what was last gen? Alola? What,
7.
Seven.
Gen 7. Yeah, there's not even that many Gen 7 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Nobody likes Gen 7.
I like them. I like the Pokemon. But yeah, it was vast majority was first gen with a sprinkling of the recent ones. But yeah, you're right. There was not a huge amount of like in the middle.
Did it take any like Gen 1 Alolan forms, if that makes sense? Did
No.
it have any of those? Interesting.
No, unfortunately, there's no like walking gardens with Alolan and Executor or anything like that.
Alolan Executor needs to be in every Pokemon product ever.
It's a beautiful thing.
The thing I think about the Pokemon that are in it is you can clearly see that they reuse a lot of the same models and animation. So watching it the whole time, I was thinking, I can see the budget. Like the scene where there's a load of Bulbasaurs. There's no Ivysaurs. There's no Venusaurs. There's no other grass-type Pokemon there. It's just like 20 Bulbasaurs. And it's like, I can see that you've only got the budget to make so many Pokemon models. And that's why you keep seeing the same ones recycled in the backgrounds and popping up and stuff. That's a bit disappointing. And maybe if they made another one with a bigger budget, then we'd get to see more Pokemon.
I feel like especially in the forest there could have been more because it is literally just Bulbasaur and Morolol, essentially.
Yeah.
When obviously there would be so much more.
Fucking Beedrills everywhere.
I have just remembered actually there's an Octillery as well that appears twice.
There's
So
an
that was an
Octillery.
interesting choice.
There's Loudred as well, and Loudred was one of my favorite bits because they do some really clever things with some of the Pokemon, and Loudred is one of them because there's like a load of them beatboxing, and like the soundtrack of the scene is just the Loudred beatboxing,
Love it.
and then they all like freak out at one point, and it changes to dubstep. It's really cool.
Man,
It's very, very cool.
you're actually making me want to watch this.
It was
I will
actually
go and watch
good. It
this.
was actually good.
I will watch it, but once the Blu-ray is out, I'm not gonna watch it in German.
I do appreciate it though for just making the Sonic movie appear that much worse back then.
Meow.
Oh man, like fucking was the trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie out in the last podcast we did? I can't remember.
I don't know if we discussed
believe it
it. I
was.
don't
I
think
don't think
so.
so, no.
I'm still really conflicted because some of my friends want to go and see that movie in the cinema, and I'm like, I really don't know if I want to financially support
I
this
want to
for
go
irony
see it in the
culture.
cinema.
Pirate it, seriously. Like,
If I can get a copy of it that's like recorded from the back of a cinema, that would be fine.
They did say they're gonna redesign it, and I'm pretty sure that was planned from the beginning to get just all the attention with the bad design.
I mean, that's a
But I'm gonna
it's a
hold
good
judgment until I see.
conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold judgment on that when I see the finished product.
As Happyman said, it's really some marketing executive's idiot idea to have approved this, and now it's some animator somewhere who's pulling 96-hour days trying to get this film done, slaving away on something that they know will be shit.
Even with the redesign, it's not going to be a good movie. The fact that Sonic looks shit is possibly going to make more people go see it than if he just looked a bit crap, you know? I don't think the redesign is going to bring them any more viewers in, which means they're just losing money on that. I don't think it's a good business decision to redesign it. It's just not a good idea.
What studio is making the movie?
Paramount. Only good thing about that trailer was the Paramount stars were rings.
The rings,
Yeah.
yeah.
I get it, because there's rings in the
I-
games.
I don't mind Jim Carrey.
Then
He was
Carrey.
hamming it. I didn't mind
He's
it.
allowed to ham it up. That's his thing at this point.
He's just doing Ace Ventura, but as
That's
Dr.
fine. I
Robotnik.
mean, he's doing every single character he's ever fucking played, which is
he's
fine.
gonna,
Like,
he's
I'm
gonna
okay
tell
with
the
this.
children about the dangers of vaccines.
Oh, I forgot he's an anti-vax.
Is he an
He
anti-vaxxer?
is. He's one of the most
fuck
prominent
him.
ones.
That's
I didn't know
unfortunate. I didn't know that either. That's
You
Yeah.
can't
unfortunate.
shut up about it.
When I was a
Mumps.
kid, I had all my vaccinations, but my mum didn't trust the microwave. She got rid of the microwave when I was a kid. But arguably, that improved my life because it meant that my parents had to cook meals for me when I was a kid.
Coming back
Pokemon.
to Detective Pikachu, I don't like Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu particularly.
Nah. I
Oh,
didn't like
he
the
was-
female character.
Oh
she
yeah,
didn't
she was
do
crap.
anything in the movie.
She was shit.
That was her problem.
Yeah, and she wasn't a great actress. I think the main guy was alright, but she was not great, and her character was just like there to move the plot on because she was the one with like the leads, and it was like it wasn't organic at all. It was just like let's move
Look
the plot
how
on.
I've got this surprise information that I shouldn't have access to that's going to accelerate our success. That was it.
I
Think
didn't
so.
mind Ryan Reynolds, but my only problem with him is that they gave him a lot of dialogue that was either making a quip that was, I would say, quite hit and miss, or just explaining the plot. And like, I know there are children in the theater, but you can't just have Detective Pikachu sitting there every step of the way, just explaining the plot of the movie to them. Give them some credit. If they can't figure it out, then maybe they should have watched a different movie. It was called Detective Pikachu, not have everything that happens in the movie explained to you by Ryan Reynolds. Pikachu.
So my question is, when the Blu-ray comes out, can we get it translated into Vietnamese and then back into English again?
Okay. There's one bit where Detective Pikachu just sings the Pokemon theme, and it's really immersion breaking, and it's like it just doesn't really fit with what's going on at all. I didn't think. I don't know if you thought the same.
Yeah.
I thought
I
it was
agree.
funny.
Tony,
I
at least
liked
they
it.
didn't make him sing like that shitty song from the end of Gen 6 like they did in the concert.
It was just a bit like that wouldn't exist in,
In
that
the world,
No.
yeah.
And it was just
No,
like, why
it-
is he singing that? Like, he
It
could
would
be singing...
exist
No,
because
But-
Pokemon is shown to be like a commercial enterprise in the world and to have like branding associated with them. So that would obviously exist. It probably wouldn't be a show just about Pokemon, but it would be, you know, it would be some kind of Pokemon related thing.
There's a bit though where they're in a newsroom, and the newsroom theme is a used up remix of the original Pokemon theme, which I felt was a lot better because it fits into the world with what's going on at the time, and it's a reference where you can go, "Ha, I know that," and it makes you
Yep.
feel a bit clever.
Yeah.
And if you don't
No.
get it, it's totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does
There's
the
no
Yeah,
version
immersion
misses
break.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's fine.
What do we think about potential sequel?
Definitely, I reckon.
I
Called.
think they've set it up for one, yeah.
Yeah.
I want a movie about Lieutenant Surge's experiences in the war.
Yes.
I feel like next movie, Detective Meowth, we didn't see Meowth at all. Big prominent character in the anime. We saw Jigglypuff, we saw Pikachu. There's no Meowth.
Well,
So
I
I
think they're
feel like
saving Meowth.
Well,
Wouldn't it be-
Detective Pikachu versus like villain Meowth.
Oh,
Like Meowth
yes.
is the bad guy.
potentially,
Cat and mouse
but
game,
just
isn't it,
because Meowth would be another talking Pokemon that like we've got a history of having a talking Meowth, so I could see them doing
Yeah.
that again.
But will we bring in Jesse and James?
Team
Was,
Rocket.
don't-
is Team Rocket there at all?
I don't mind them bringing Team Rocket in, but I don't want them to try and make Jesse and James.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree.
You can't make an anime character in real life without it being shit.
Phoenix Wright.
I haven't seen Phoenix Wright. It doesn't mean anything.
Go watch Phoenix Wright.
I
It's a
don't
great
have
movie.
any hobbies.
Okay, so let's talk Wario Land 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Wario Land 4 was our book club game for this podcast. It's the fourth game in the Wario Land series of video games in which you play as Wario and he's in a land. That's all I can really say about it. It's a platforming title. It's a bit slower than usual Mario games. Wario's a beefy guy, so he does things like shoulder barging people and throwing them through walls. And it's on the GBA. Who wants to kick us off with impressions?
It's
Also,
good.
Wario, the best part about these games is that when enemies hurt you, they cause a status effect, which helps you solve puzzles. Which leads you to a situation where you are getting Wario intentionally hurt in order to progress him in the game.
It's true. It's more of a puzzle platformer than an action platformer. Although Wario Land 4 is leaning more towards action than puzzle than previous Wario Land titles.
Yeah. So Wario Land 3, it was like mostly puzzle because you had no health in that game. You couldn't die. And the puzzles, I think, in Wario Land 3 were much more difficult than they were in this game.
Definitely.
But it's interesting the balance this game strikes because it introduces this, like frog clock system. So you'll have the first stage of the level where you're wandering around and figuring it out. And normally you're kind of finding your way through the level. And as you're going, you're kind of building a mental map of the level. And then at the end of the level, you hit the frog clock and suddenly you've got to run back from the frog clock to the place you came in. And it's really interesting because a lot of the levels will do this really cool thing where they'll recontextualize some mechanic or they'll force you to think about the layout of the level in a way that you hadn't before. It's a really, really clever idea.
Yep.
Certain areas only open up after you hit the frog clock, so sometimes you have to just take a whole different path through the level.
And you have to panic.
Yes, you always panic.
And it's really stressful music, and Wario says, "Hurry up! Hurry up!"
So good, but it's so scary.
I don't think in the whole thing of the game I ever ran out of time during one of these sections. Neither. The timers are really generous, but that doesn't mean that it's not like an exciting conclusion to a level. It always feels like high stakes, but it's never like frustrating.
What's interesting is, like you said about making a mental map and new areas becoming unlocked, is to progress to the bosses of each world, you have to collect all of the gem pieces in a level, and some gem pieces will only be available to collect when the frog clock is active in some cases. So as well as getting back to the start, sometimes you've got to be solving puzzles to unlock those pieces before you get back to the warp point and get out of the level. So it really does change things up.
I thought the pieces were kind of a missed opportunity because one of the things I really like about Wario Land 3 is just how like sprawling and non-linear it is. But I felt like with this game, like 90% of the pieces are just there, like on your way to the key in the clock. With most of the levels, you just go in one direction to get everything. I thought that was a missed opportunity. I would have liked to see more like hub-based levels.
What's interesting with the branching paths that there are in the game is there's often little challenge rooms that are specific puzzles on their own, where it'll be like one closed room with a challenge to get a gem or something, because the game's got a score system and you get extra points for how much money you collect in the levels. So that's a way of making it so that you can get a higher score if you complete these challenge rooms.
Does it actually matter in the outcome, like with Mario?
No,
mentioned, or Wario?
It doesn't. So that's the other thing. You don't really get anything for getting a better score.
There's lots and lots of content hidden in this game. Like there's loads of hidden gems and things, but it doesn't get you anything. And I'm kind of conflicted because in one way, some collectathons are just insufferable about like how you have to collect loads of things, but I wouldn't mind there being like a small like bonus area or something like a badge on your profile or something maybe that you could unlock by getting every single gem in the levels.
What it does contribute to, though, is the more money you've got, the more of the mini games you can play. And if you play the mini games, then you unlock a different currency that you can use to buy items for boss fights that then make the boss fights easier. So that's the only thing you're really collecting money for in the game.
This was one of my problems with the game, is that number one, the mini games all fucking suck. They're all terrible, which is really weird for a Wario Land game of all things, considering that this is made by the same team who went on to do WarioWare.
When I played it as a kid, I used to love the game where Wario's rolling on a tire and jumping over like cactuses and stuff. I used to play that for hours.
Game?
It is kind of a rhythm game, yeah. But playing it again as an adult, I was like, wow, this is boring.
It's infuriating because not only is the timing like kind of precise, but there are long periods where there's just no input required. There'll be like a period where it's just 30 seconds and there's no obstacles. And when an obstacle finally does come, it throws you off because you're out of the rhythm. You haven't been using your fingers for the past 30 seconds. It's infuriating.
When you do unlock items to go fight the bosses are terrible. I gotta say that. The bosses in this game aren't good.
They're not fun, no.
I really liked all of the bosses except for Air Rodent.
The plant guy was probably the best. Air Rodent is fucking awful.
Air Rodent is such a terrible boss. I actually don't know how they put it in the game and got it through QA. All of the bosses in this game, including the final boss, I beat on my first try. They weren't challenging. Some of them I thought were more fun than others. Overall, they weren't bad, except Air Rodent. So the idea of this boss is that it's like a floating bear. You have to shoulder charge it once to flip it over, and then you have to shoulder charge again to hit a mouse that comes out of its head. The problem with this is that the hitbox for the mouse is really, really tiny, and if you miss it, you flip the bear over again, and it will go through a 30-second like canned animation, and you only have 4 minutes to fight the boss. So basically, if you miss this guy like more than about twice, you won't have enough time to beat the boss and you'll fail it. It is just infuriating.
Yeah, it's like something from a bad NES game.
It's just a huge difficulty spike in the game, and that's the only reason that I played the mini games, was to get enough money to buy the item that makes that boss trivial. And that's another irritating thing, is that the items you get from the mini games just get rid of like 90% of the boss's health. So it's like, it's pointless there even being a boss fight. You may as well just have the item skip the boss fight.
Yeah, you don't get anything like extra power-ups or anything for the boss fight. It does just do damage to the boss, and it's all about how much you want to grind that minigame for how much damage you can do to the boss with that item, because they've all got their own little visual flair, but like functionally they just do damage to the boss.
I don't want to linger on it too much, because it is, in my opinion, a blemish on an otherwise really good game.
Has anyone got a level that they specifically want to pick out to talk about that they liked or didn't like?
Let's talk about the pinball level.
Let's do Domino Road first, because that's a good level, then we'll talk about the pinball level.
Domino Road is a fucking great concept in which, at the start of every room, Wario has to trip something, which causes a bunch of domino bricks in a line to fall. And the idea is you have to race the dominoes to the end point of the room in order to get something. Usually you move on anyway, but if you race the domino bricks and succeed, you get like money or items or something.
Or sometimes the puzzle pieces that you need to progress.
Yes. And it's just really satisfying and fun. Like there's not
that level.
It's not mechanically complicated or anything, but it's great.
It's really visually well represented as well.
Yes.
Because it's not like, because it's a timer, but it's not just like a timer at the top of your screen. It's actually something you can follow through the level. It's really good because you're like, oh, I'm in the lead. It's like you're racing something. It's like, I'm in the lead. Oh no, I've slowed down and it's overtaken me. It's really good.
So levels I really like in that game. Monsoon Jungle I had a lot of fun with. Just it's a good like pure platforming level.
I got lost in there.
It's big, but I like it. I like the more non-linear levels that the game has. Crescent Moon Village I liked, and I like that there's a ghost that steals the key away in the escape sequence.
He's good because he follows you throughout the whole level and doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
it's like, what's he doing?
Like, what's he for?
Oh, he is one of the bosses from Wario Land 3. He's the ghost that you fight in the ship in the swamp.
Fiery Cavern I really liked. It's like a volcano level with all of these like things of magma coming out of the ground. But then when you hit the frog switch, the whole level turns to ice, and suddenly all of the lava has solidified. So there's new platforms that you're able to jump on because the lava's solid, and you can then jump on it to reach new areas to get the puzzle pieces. I thought that was really good. Also, on the subject of ice levels, 40 Below Fridge, which is the one that has all the puzzles to do with rolling from the right area.
Yes.
Because that's another one that really tests your like spatial reasoning. You've got to think like, okay, if I roll from this platform, I go down here, I bounce here, I break through these blocks, etc. It was really fun.
This game uses the same engine as Metroid Fusion, and you can totally tell. And that level just made me think of it, especially because it looks like one of the rooms from Metroid Fusion, one of the environments.
Yeah, you can kind of tell when Wario does the running dash as well. It's very like the Shine Spark kind of deal.
Yes, and the spring, when you do the big jump and you break through a bunch of blocks, that's also very Metroid. It's cool.
I think what I like most about this game maybe is that each level has its own concept and its own set of like rules almost. Like there's one level that's just like a game board and you keep hitting blocks that kind of roll the dice. But each level's got something new like that isn't in any other level, and it keeps the game feeling fresh the whole way through. Can we talk about the pinball level?
Again, it's like Spec said, it's a game with all of these different ideas. And actually, it reminded me a lot of like stuff that Nintendo were doing like 10 years after in terms of how well it executes the whole, like every level has its own mechanic that, you know, you see and you get tutorialized and then it plays around with it. And then you get to like the pinball level and it's the whole gimmick of the level is there's pinballs that you have to throw into holes. And it's a really long level and it's so boring because the whole level is just picking up pinballs and throwing them in holes.
Yeah, it's awful. And we both had to do it twice because we both missed a specific gem piece right at the start of the level.
Yeah, there's a gem piece right at the start that you have to break a breakable wall to get into. And I saw that and I was like, oh, the game's obviously just setting up that I'll come back here later and get it from a different area. But no, I had to break through a wall to get it.
Yeah, and I thought the exact same thing. So we had to do this whole big, long-ass level twice.
Of course, it's the fucking longest level in the game.
I feel like anything that involves picking up and throwing things is the weakest part of the game.
Yeah.
That was my opinion. I don't like anything to do with picking up and throwing things.
I had a little bit of trouble during some of the boss fights getting Wario to throw things right. I don't know if anybody else had that.
Yeah, it's weird. You've got two very specific angles for the throw, really, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got kind of up diagonally with a drop on it, or just straight forward, and it leaves a lot to be desired when you need to position yourself to hit a specific target.
But even jump and then throw forward in midair.
You can, but again,
that was my problem. Is I ended up throwing forward in a lot of the boss fights, even though I was holding up. I don't know quite what makes it go that way.
Yeah. Music then. The music is weird, like what you were saying, Rusty. Go on.
It is, but it's just wee, wee, wee. During the timer when it's counted down.
Oh yeah, the timer music is good.
It is amazing. It is great, the music.
The GBA sound card is not very good, I have to say. But the music in this game is just so weird. There's actually some really good chill tracks, like, what is that one, the lake level?
I remember in the Emerald Passage there's a lot of good music.
Yeah,
Isn't
cool.
there one on the beach that has lyrics?
The first level you'll probably go to is the beach level and has lyrics. It's just like, look what we can do with the GBA sound card, because this is an early GBA title, and...
I don't think the GBA sound card completely ruins it. I think there's still some good stuff in there.
I remember commenting on the lyrics when we were playing it, and I was like, you can't tell what they're saying, really. It's all very muffled. The opening cutscene has some singing in it as well, and it's just a weird choice for a system with such a bad kind of sound card for that kind of music.
This does have some of my favorite Wario voice lines also.
Excellent!
Excellent! That's a great one.
Hurry up!
Hurry up! Hurry up!
The fading.
There's some variations of it, and one of them just sounds like him. He's slightly annoyed.
Had Wario talked before this properly?
Mario Party, yeah. In which he has kind of a German accent. No, I miss.
Oh, I miss.
Oh no, I miss.
So I missed! Mario Golf
Mario
on the
Kart
N64 has 4 different taunt buttons on the C buttons. So one of Wario's taunts is 1, 2, 3, 4!
1, 2, 3, 4!
What's your overall impression then? I felt like it was a good game, but it's not as good as I remember it being when I was a kid. I feel like it's a bit short and could have done with an extra world, or the last level being a world rather than just one level and then a boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree with you on the shortness. I was actually surprised by how short it was. I thought it was going to be longer. But I played this game when I was a kid, and I've not been back to it at all. And I like this game a lot more now than I did then. I didn't actually like it back then. Like, I preferred the very, very slow puzzly style of Wario Land 3, and I was kind of annoyed that they'd put all these like timer like mechanics in it. But going back to it, no, I think I like it more.
It's a pretty good game, but I think this pales in comparison to Wario Land 3. The progression in 3 is just so much better. You unlock Wario's powers one by one, Metroid style, instead of having them all in the first place. There's a lot of mechanics in this that just don't feel fit, like the mini games and the scoring system and all this stuff. It just doesn't need to be there for like a handheld puzzle platformer. And Wario Land 3 is just a lot tighter in that regard.
To a certain extent, it feels like they had started making a more Wario Land 3 type collectathon, explory platformer thing, and then kind of changed their focus to make it more linear partway through. Like the fact that you have to collect 4 pieces in every level, but most of the pieces are just there in front of you and they're no effort to get. Like it feels like maybe at one time they had intended to have stuff that you had to, backtrack for, or unlockable things, but for whatever reason they just decided not to. I think some of the game design ideas in this are better than they are in Wario Land 3, but also I don't really know why you have a health bar in this game, because for me, I didn't die in it. Again,
so, here's a question. Does anyone know what the difference is between normal and hard mode?
Hard mode moves around where some of the puzzle pieces are. It moves where the frog clock is situated in some levels, and super hard mode does as well. Moves the frog clock more often, and it reduces the time that comes up on the frog clock.
Doesn't it also reduce your health?
I think so, yeah. Bosses have more health, you have less.
Recommended that I go on play a hard mode, so I did. I did die a couple of times.
There we go.
I don't know if it's super hard mode or hard mode, but one of these modes reduces its time limit in the final level before the final boss to 3 minutes.
And it's 9 minutes on the normal time.
What number of health do you start with when you play?
I think you got a max of 8 and you start with 4 or 5, something like that. I think
you start with 3 in hard mode.
I think in super hard mode you've only got 1 hit point as well.
That doesn't surprise me.
What I would say generally is if you're more of a fan of Wario Land 3, you'll probably like this game, but less. But if you are more of a fan of Wario Land 2, this game might be more up your alley, because it has a similar balance to what I think Wario Land 2 had.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyone else got any closing thoughts before we move on?
Very quiet during that segment. I did not enjoy that game at all.
Really? What's wrong with it?
I bounced straight off of it. Like, things take so long to do. The game just has inordinate amounts of, I want you to wait here while this happens now. I didn't finish it, to be honest with you. I got, I think, 2 levels into every world, except the green, which I finished. I did finish green. Music is great. Graphics are great, though. All those things are fantastic.
The only thing that bored me about it was the pinball level. I don't remember waiting that much otherwise.
Didn't get there.
So, me and Moogle have discussed this before. Who would win in a treasure hunt? Wario or Scrooge McDuck?
Wario.
Wario.
Really? I'm going to go with Scrooge.
Scrooge doesn't search for his own treasure. He sends people out. He hires. He gets hired hands.
He just sends them. He doesn't.
He goes out treasure hunting personally a lot, I feel.
Yeah. He goes out bouncing around the Amazon on a fucking stick.
Wario wins, but then in some kind of freak accident loses all the treasure and Scrooge gets it instead.
I expected him to lose the money by the end.
Yes. Wario is more of an anti-hero.
Yes.
Scrooge McDuck is an anti-hero.
I mean, it depends what DuckTales continuity you're looking at.
Scrooge McDuck is a bastard.
In Don Rosa, he's an anti-hero.
Yes, he is. I'm thinking more of like the Disney and the more recent cartoon where they try and make him like softer around the edges and like, oh no, money's not important. It's really friendship and hard work.
For Scrooge McDuck to say that money is not the most important thing in the world, that's just wrong.
Can I pose a question to you lads?
Go on.
I've been thinking a lot about video game censorship recently because we've had a couple of high-profile cases. I want to
censorship. They're censoring my video game.
Thank you,
Somebody
Catsman.
take Sony to jail for denying me my anime boobies.
No,
that's not this particular censorship.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The other thing is that Mortal Kombat 11 has not been released in Japan due to violence, specifically very grotesque violence, but I just wanted to get some idea of what everyone thinks about porny video games versus violent video games versus no censorship versus whatever. I haven't been able to find any sales figures for previous Mortal Kombat titles in Japan, so I don't even know if it's worth them censoring it for Japan and then releasing a different different version, but I've had a look into Sony's other entertainment divisions, specifically into Columbia Pictures, which is one of Sony's subsidiaries, and they released Sausage Party. So for them to say that's not good in video games, like having a bit of bum or a bit of boob showing, and then to release Sausage Party, which, you know, is just
Bad.
sex the whole way through.
Video games are still considered to be for kids.
It's hypocrisy, but at the end of the day, like, it's just business-related hypocrisy. They're going to do it one way or the other because it makes them money. Or they think it makes them money.
But why bother having age rating? Because Nintendo weighed in on this. They were asked, what's your censorship policy? And they said, well, we have an age ratings system and parents can choose to limit what ages their children play. Why?
As it should be.
As it should be. And the other thing about Sony's sort of censorship policies for PS4 is that they haven't really told the developers what is okay and what's not okay. There's not like a list of criteria. They've basically said, we'll know it when we see it. And they're waiting for dev builds to come out and then saying, yes or no, this can go onto our console. So that's the issue with Sony.
I think personally Sony is regretting their PS Vita era image of being like the console for weeaboos.
But that can't be the case because they sell so well in Europe and America. Like the PS4 has sold massive amounts. It's on track to be as good as the PS2, I think, in terms of sales. So
yeah, but I think they're just thinking about their public image, and they can't maintain simultaneously like a trendy, cool public image and like a niche weeaboo public image.
I can't see why you can't do both. I mean, Nintendo's managed to do both for like decades and been successful.
Somehow.
I'd say Nintendo's always had an image of family-friendly rather than weeb-centered or, you know, cool.
Yeah, one of the largest criticisms that Nintendo had for quite a long time up until the Switch was the fact that they didn't have any more, quotation, serious games for serious gamers. So I don't think it's really fair to say that they've been doing it for that long, but they definitely are doing it.
They never really did anything about games released on their platforms by others, though, which is what I'm getting at. They had like Resident Evil on the GameCube, Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, and those were like high-profile releases on that platform, and Nintendo just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
So certainly from the violence perspective, they've got that. Like from the other perspective, I can't think of many things where they've just said, no, we won't release it at all.
No, because they don't really do that.
No.
Except when they did.
I mean, they did back in
it was before the ESRB existed.
Yeah, I mean, that was a thing that happened. So, Mortal Kombat, thanks very much, Mortal Kombat.
So looking at Mortal Kombat now not releasing in Japan and Indonesia, it's a similar question. Why are you banning the sale of this game in your country when it has a rating on it? Just slap an adults-only rating on it.
Was it banned or did they just not release it?
It's not been released, but it's due to Japan saying we don't want it. Oddly
enough, Resident Evil 2, the recent remake, also has this exact same problem in Japan where the Japanese version specifically is heavily censored. So, if you remember from the demo, there's a number of things that even in the demo that you don't see in the full game. Like the guy who gets his bottom half bitten off by the zombie that you drag under the barrier. In the Japanese version, his bottom half is intact, it's just bloody. The guy whose face is half off and you lift up his head and his jaw just kind of falls off. Doesn't happen in the Japanese version. Beheadings don't happen in the Japanese version. Like Mr. X doing his thing where he gets clawed doesn't happen in the Japanese version. None of these things happen. So
weird.
A lot of the heavy violent stuff like dismemberment and beheadings and all that other stuff gets censored in Japan anyway. But the companies just do it themselves as part of the process of releasing in Japan. Violence-wise, they've been doing that for ages.
So, again, I wanted to try and bring a parallel with other entertainment industries, such as the movie industry for Japan. Couldn't really find any good sources on any gory films that had come out recently.
So I think Japan have exactly the same kind of rulings for any kind of, moving pictures, games, all that kind of stuff. There's no dismemberment, physical dismemberment on screen allowed.
They did make a Attack on Titan live-action movie.
Does that have dismemberment on it?
A lot. There goes a leg.
Interesting. I don't know then. Like, maybe
So-
it's game specifically that it happens with. I don't know.
Probably.
This is the thing that we're still seeing then, is that video games are seen to affect children, I guess, more readily than other sorts of media, and therefore are getting more heavily censored, which I find it a bit weird when you can put an age rating on those things and say it's not for kids. And it's interesting that you say about Resident Evil 2 Moogle being censored in Japan, which I could see them doing for Mortal Kombat, but if it's not going to sell well in Japan anyway, then they may as well just not release it.
And part of the problem with Mortal Kombat is that so much of it is purely based around that explicit gore on screen. Like,
Yeah, that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
it's part of the game is that it offers that. Even more so than something like Resident Evil, which is just about violence and a little bit of gore and a little bit of body horror. Mortal Kombat specifically is, I am going to punch your head off. It will happen on screen.
Yeah,
I am
well-
going to rip you in two, rip your arms off, and then crush you to death with them.
Mortal Kombat's the one where it has like the X-ray vision of you breaking people's spines and shit like that, isn't
It
it?
also has that, yes.
Yeah. So like, it's part of what makes Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat. You
Yeah.
can't really just censor out the main draw of the game
Yeah.
for a lot
Like,
of people.
what are you left with?
Yeah.
When you
You're
remove
left with
it,
just a generic
you're left with
fighter
just a fighting
Yeah.
game, yeah.
Yeah.
You could just play Street Fighter.
Yeah.
and
Well, this is,
probably
and
have
that's
better
what
fun.
people do. That's probably why they probably won't end up doing it. It will come down to purely like the business decision. If we sell this game in Japan censored, will it sell? The answer is like, do they
No.
buy Mortal Kombat anyway? Probably not so much.
Yeah.
Like typically, it's never been that popular over in Japan.
Do you think, just in terms of if this is going to be a continuing problem, would a good solution to any video game coming out be having a toggle in games for a kids version of the game? So say Mortal Kombat, you take out the fatalities, you slightly change the animations for X-ray so that you don't see the bones breaking, things like that. And then you could say, well, you know, it can be adults only if you want
No.
it, or you can set it to kids mode.
No, because they don't allow that. The law specifically is what is contained within the code of the game.
Yeah.
Like, so being able to toggle it isn't good enough, because they had this problem in America, exactly this problem, where Mortal Kombat 1 released on the Mega Drive without blood, but you could just put in a cheat code, which was amazingly just leaked within like a day of release, and you could just like put blood on.
Yeah.
But their excuse was, well, we didn't have the blood turned on in it, and it didn't wash in Congress at the time, and it wouldn't in future. But then they released the games with blood in future anyway, because people
Well,
stopped caring.
GoldenEye paintball mode.
Oh god, yes, GoldenEye paintball
what?
mode, beautiful.
GoldenEye paintball mode, and the idea is that kids can play it, and then it's not a violent game.
Do we want to talk about Baba Is You?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hempfully,
Yes.
friend of the podcast.
Yes.
Shout
Love you.
outs.
Love you, Hempuli, even if you won't talk to us. He's too cool
He's
to
grown
talk to
past
us
us
now.
now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Baba Is You, fucking cracking game.
It's a good game.
Apparently it's got a finish, but
Yeah.
I'll never get there because I'm stupid.
Have
Brand.
any
I'm
of
also
us
a brainlet.
finished it yet?
I'm a brainlet.
I haven't-
cannot into move.
No.
I haven't tried for a while. So you unlock the. We should
unlocked-
explain what Baba Is You is first. Really, it's a puzzle game which is based around a series of logic puzzles. You push around words that are in the levels to make sentences, which then allow you to affect the world.
Wall is stop.
Yeah,
Rock-
to give
rock is
example,
push,
yeah,
flag is win.
you can't walk through walls if they are stop, but if you were to move the word stop out of that sentence, wall is stop, then you can walk through walls. Rock is push, lets you push the rock.
You have to create a win condition, so an object can become win, or you can make yourself win, and things like that. But to finish a level, you have to complete a win condition.
But you still need to be yourself if you want to be a win.
Yeah.
So
You have to be a thing in order to,
the game is called Baba Is You because the majority of levels will start you off as Baba with the sentence Baba is you. But if you move another character into the position where Baba's word would be, so if you were to put KK in, KK is another character you can play as, or you could just be a wall or a rock or anything in the level,
All
really.
walls.
Yeah, all
empty
walls.
is you.
No, never.
Empty
No.
is you.
No.
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 I'm hearing that wind rushing noise. The thing that's, I guess, not obvious about it is that the declarative statements that form the logic of the game are objects in the game world. And the thing about the puzzles is that oftentimes, in order to manipulate them in a certain way, you'll have to get another combination of these words into another sort of state. Everything is like a very kind of step-by-step, I've done this, now I can do this, now I can do this. They're not like super open-ended. They have one logical solution that you can kind of methodically like break it down to, but also most of them rely on like properties of these that do make sense that they're there, but which wouldn't be immediately obvious to you, that you have to think about a new use for a mechanic that the game has already introduced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
It does a really good job of starting you off with some easy puzzles in each world that show you how the new concept that's been introduced works. So you might start off with a world that's focused around the word move, and if an object is move, it will walk around the level in a straight line. So sometimes you've got to do things like, if you want to complete the level, get a character that's on the other side of the level that you can't get to walk over to your side of the level while pushing something, and it'll gradually build on that until you get multiple things moving at the same time that you need to walk in specific patterns to push things around the level and stuff like that. And then it'll layer on other words that you've used before to increase complexity of the puzzles. And it does a really good job of kind of easing you into understanding how it works with those specific words.
Yeah, it's a very good game. And the way it like layers up all of the different things, like basically if you do accidentally like make it so that there is nothing that is you, then you have to either reverse your moves or reset. But there are some games which require you to not be you, and you have to like wait for things to be triggered, and then you get to be, oh, it's fucking great. It's so good.
Yeah, sometimes you can set an object to move and then kill yourself. So, like, you're nothing just so that you can wait for it to push a word into a slot so that then you become something else.
Yeah, very advanced. And there is meta as well because it's Empuli.
There's some meta. The meta stuff is like when you get really late into the game, the word level starts to appear, and you can win a level by saying level is win, but you could also accidentally make level defeat. Like the whole level would just disappear. But then there's this really meta bit where you can access the world map while still being in control of Baba by like... Yeah, I'm not going to spoil how it works because I know some people are probably going to want to work it out themselves if they're listening to this. But when you get to the word level, try some stuff out and it's cool.
Mental.
Specs is off.
Specs is off.
What I like...
Fitty is bum, bottle
Fitty
is
is
cum.
bum. Bottle is cum.
Bottle has come.
Miss is bad.
This has gone.
What I like most about Baba Is You is there have been times when I've been playing it and stuck on a puzzle, and I've been like, oh, I can't figure it out. And I'll go and I'll have a shower, and I'll think about it in the shower, and I'll come up with the solution, come back to it, and do it. You can play the game in your head, is what's good about it.
I thought I had that kind of a breakthrough moment with Empty like a while ago. I was literally like falling asleep in bed, and I thought I'd figured out how Empty worked. So when I woke up, I went and tried it, and I was completely fucking wrong.
Yeah, it has the best like eureka moments of any puzzler I've played recently.
Yeah, you feel like you accomplished something when you figure something out how it works.
Even one level.
Oh, that's how it works.
I want to end on one observation that I had about Baba Is You, which is that there's an undo button in it. And I play a lot of Sokoban type games, including like Chips Challenge and stuff. And goddamn, if you make a Sokoban game and you don't put an undo button in your game, then I hate you.
Not as good as Mario Maker's undo button, though, is it? Mario Maker has a button called the undog, and you press it and he barks, and then he undoes the last thing that you did.
I
Is
didn't
there
watch the
multiplayer yet?
direct.
Yep.
Yes. The multiplayer is weird, though. They've done it in a weird way where it's not got local multiplayer on one console. You need to have 4 Switches with 4 game cartridges if you want to play multiplayer with 4 people. And at least one person has to have a Switch Online account so they can connect to the internet to host a room even though it's being played locally with 4 people.
That's fucking dumb.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's Nintendo, like, giving with one hand. and then having shit in the other.
Has it been confirmed
As
that
per
there's no
usual.
local multiplayer?
There is local multiplayer, but
On
on one
console,
console,
I mean.
no, because it doesn't have any way of managing the camera for 4 people at once.
Yeah, so they've made it so that you don't share the same screen,
Yeah.
which is good, but I wouldn't mind there also being a one-screen mode, because, like, yes,
Basically
it was
a new
bad
Super
in
Mario
New
Bros.
Super
mode.
Mario Bros., but it
Its
was
badness
playable.
was part of the appeal to
Yeah.
me. There's nothing better in a game of New Super Mario Brothers than hopping on Matt Dodds' head over and over again when he's trying to jump over one pit.
Mm-hmm.
Pepsi plans to project a giant ad in the night sky using CubeSats. What I've written here is ads in space, one of which is focused on discrimination of that most persecuted minority, gamers. So
It's using it to promote a campaign against stereotypes and unjustified prejudices against gamers. So they're actually supporting gamers.
Really?
They're supporting gamers on behalf of an energy drink called Adrenaline Rush.
isn't this the most dystopian thing you can think of? You look up into the sky and there's an ad for Pepsi there.
Who's discriminating it? Like, gamers. Don't 50% of women statistically come up as play video games nowadays because
Yeah,
of
but they
mobile
don't count
phones?
mobile. Like, they don't consider mobile games real games.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wooly. I didn't realize women didn't count as gamers. All right.
What?
No, I think that statistic specifically also includes like mobile games and things like that. So it's not accurate to what you would refer to as quote unquote gamers.
Are you discriminating mobile gamers?
Yes, I am.
Those games suck ass.
Animal Crossing Pocket Camp is good.
I want to read out a quote from the project leader because it sounds like the villain speech in a bad cyberpunk movie. He says, "We are ruled by brands and events. The Super Bowl, Coca-Cola, Brexit, the Olympics, Mercedes, FIFA, Supreme, and the Mexican Wall. The economy is the blood system of society. Entertainment and advertising are at its heart."
Can I
Is
just
this the
ask?
new villain in Harry Potter becomes a communist?
No, that's the same villain that's already in Harry Potter
Dr.
becomes a
Pepsi!
communist.
Professor
Pepsi.
Professor Pepsi.
Can I just ask, is Brexit a brand or
It's
an
an
event?
event. It says
Because it's
brands
not
of
an
food.
event yet. I was just running in the numbers in my head. Potentially, gamers do count as a minority. If you ignore mobile gaming, then think about sales of games consoles at the moment. We've got something like 50 million PS4 sales, something like 20 million Switch sales, like 3 Xbox
We
One
are
sales.
35 million. Switch.
Okay, so like maybe 100 million current gen gamers at the moment compared with 7 billion people on
What
the
about
planet.
PC,
What
lad?
about PC? Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit about
That's at
PC.
least 4 billion
fuck.
right there.
But are they all gaming? How many users on Steam? How many users on the Epic Store? That's current. There's 85 million users in less than 4 months on the Epic Games Store. So if you add them to our total, there's 200 million gamers and 7 billion people on the planet. We are a minority. Gamers rise up.
Rise up. Bottom text.
Font text.
Make Joaquin Phoenix say we live in a society in the new Joker movie.
Let's move on to some other nonsense. I've got comments. So someone wants another episode of Max Hyperdrive. I know you already responded to say it's never going to happen.
I wish it could, though. I wish it could. But don't worry, whoever that is, you'll have my Pat Guy video, which is like going to be the next best thing.
One of my favorites was someone said, "Are you dead? Where's the new podcast?" And Catsman responded saying, "New podcast is in editing. Also check out YouTube for the Pocket Monster Manual." And he responded, "Pokemon is for babies. I don't give a shit about that."
I really
is it
like
wrong?
our demographic. They're good.
Other comments, Bloom saying that every once in a while, in between all the irreverence and shithousery, you'll do come out with some quality content. This is one such example. Good job, gents. Responding to the interview with the Yonoid dev team. So that's the one good thing we've put out in the last 2 years.
I'm going to be honest, I'm in it for the irreverent shithousery. I'm not at all interested in producing quality.
I mean, we knew this from the start, in fairness.
Which brings me on to my other favourite comment from the last year, which is in response to 5 genre-defining games forgotten by history. It's a good selection of rare, almost forgotten games. You argue their influence very well, but your sense of humor, well, it ruins the video for me completely. It's this shit-tier basic irony bro thing that is just so dated. Had to stop after the 1983 joke. I just couldn't bear it anymore.
That does flatter me, honestly. Whoever that is gonna love the Pat Guy video. Please, if you're listening, go
Serious user.
check the Pat Guy video when it comes out. You'll love it.
I also got some stuff from our spam filter from our blog, which I found funny. A few of them have disappeared recently. We had a purge, unfortunately, so I've lost some of my favorite spam.
When I purged it, I didn't realize he was attached to our spam.
Some of it was good spam. My favorite ones are ones that are trying to market something to you but come across as if they've actually read your blog. So we've got one that's, hello there, hope you are well. I'm Simon, outreach manager at a leading digital marketing agency. I came across your website and read some of your articles. They are so unique and informative. And the other good one I've got from recently is best nude playmates and centerfolds beautiful galleries daily updates. But the punchline is the web address http://granny.porn.setlifeblog.com/Berenice.
I would now like to have a retrospective of Sony advertising.
What?
Have we never done this before?
No, we've had random discussions about Sony advertising, but I thought it would be good to reminisce on all of the worst Sony adverts that you've seen over time.
I think my favorite is the squirrels.
Yes.
Like a nut you can play with outside.
Come out and play! I can't! I'm playing Nut! But there's Portable Nut! What? Yeah! It's a nut you can play with outside!
PSP. It's like a nut you can play with outside.
I think if that advert had come out today, in today's post-irony culture, it would have gone down better.
And there's another one with some rats in a sewer, and they're talking about cheese. They say it's like cheese you can listen to outside.
Hey! What are you doing down there? What do you think I'm doing? I'm listening to cheese! But there's portable cheese! I've heard that one before. You probably can only listen to cheddar.
No, you can listen to Swiss, provolone, American, sharp, whatever you want.
Shut up!
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's cheese you can listen to outside.
PSP. It's like cheese you can listen to outside.
Because they're using their cheese as like a stereo set or something. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
You see, that would, I think, go down well today. But
I love it.
Wouldn't.
yeah, it would, because people like bullshit that doesn't make any sense today, but they didn't then. Does anyone remember the thumb penis advert?
Oh, God.
No.
I
PlayStation.
remember of it. I don't quite remember it.
I remember of it.
This was when they had that weird marketing campaign that was all based on body parts. So they had stuff like someone's head exploding with like the different parts of like the functions of the brain like written out. And there was one with a load of like underwear. And the underwear was either shaped like PlayStation buttons, or the underwear was on flesh-colored pillows that were of PlayStation buttons. So the cross, the circle, the square, the triangle.
Okay, finally, I've found the thumb penis advert. Be aware, this is a picture of a penis, but with the penis replaced with a thumb.
That just looks like a penis, though. It just looks like a penis.
That's how they get you to look at the ad. You're
And
like, wait,
what point are they trying to get across?
I don't know.
that you'll have a good time with your thumb? I don't know. Oh god, PlayStation Portable White is coming.
And also arriving.
God.
They got some shit for that one, didn't they?
They did
Yeah,
get some
they
shit for
did.
that one, which is not entirely surprising.
When they were doing the bodyscape stuff, it was the weirdest time.
If
you've got
this?
Yeah, this is the sort of thing. So I'll try to describe this picture for listeners at home. I mean, I'd describe it almost like an orgy, but it's a group of people kind of sat around with large and small body parts. There's a giant ear in the background. They're all kind of like sat on top of each other. There's some wires coming out. There's someone's head has the top cut off and someone else is whisking it. There's a guy that looks like Barack Obama but with an afro in the back being punched in the face by a tiny woman who's got no legs. And someone is drinking what appears to be piss out of a skull. She's not got it held to her lips. It's like she's pouring it from above.
It's like a foot away from her mouth.
And the skull has eyes in it.
So it doesn't say anything about PlayStation. It doesn't say anything about the Sony brand. It's just a weird advert.
I feel like this is just people who work in advertising thinking that they're cleverer than they actually are.
This is art!
Almost certainly.
Art!
So here's another one of my
Mate.
favorites from times gone by. The PS3 like baby doll advert.
Yeah.
Which had
yeah, I remember
a
this.
creepy, laughing, crying baby doll staring at a PS3.
And that was just the whole advert.
Yep.
It's very Space Odyssey.
No, it's like fucking discount Stanley Kubrick garbage.
That's what he said.
There's one for the PS2 that I cannot seem to find for the fucking life of me. It was like white screen with like black lines animated on it, and it's just a guy watching someone dance and then goes, I don't know how it works, but it's good, isn't it? And then it's just like PlayStation 2, and then that was it.
I don't know how it works, but it's good, isn't it?
The PS Vita was advertised with like a mannequin torso, but it had breasts on both sides.
Oh, I
So,
remember
like,
that one as well.
I remember that one. That's so bad.
Emphasizes that it's got touchscreens on the front and back. The one with just the
Nobody
grown man coming out of a woman's vagina.
Yeah.
It's
What?
like childbirth because you haven't lived until you've played PlayStation 2. The woman who's just surrounded by fleshy PlayStation buttons as if like
Yep.
she's having sex with multiple buttons.
I like that the square has a little treasure trail there.
It's not that she's having sex with them, it's the fact that her husband's coming home to find her having sex with his PlayStation.
Why are
Outrage.
you having sex with my flesh cube?
Weird shit.
Do you think the advertising worked?
No.
No, absolutely
I mean-
not.
How well did the
I mean,
PSP
you remember
sell?
it, right? You remember that it's associated with the PlayStation, so in theory it's done its job.
But have I ever bought a PlayStation product? No.
Yeah, but some would say, like, you know, like why Coca-Cola advertises. Like, everybody knows what Coca-Cola is, but it's just continually bombarding you with the image of that brand. Anywhere you go outside, you look on the internet, you read the paper. There it is, Coca-Cola. It's ubiquitous. They don't care that you already know what it was. They want you to think about it multiple times a day, every day.
I guess from that perspective, yes, it's successful, but not from a sales perspective by any stretch.
Okay, fair enough.
Live in your world, play in ours.
PlayStation.
I have an update on cloud-based video gaming from Stadia last time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is this the not Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft thing?
Sony and Microsoft are partnering for some new cloud-based AI stuff. But what I wanted to say is we've been playing Sekiro over Parsec.
Oh yeah, we have, haven't we?
So I've been playing Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, on Moogle's PC from across the internet using Parsec, and it was fine, even with the amount of lag you get from Parsec. Like, it is a very execution-focused game where you're having to parry a lot of things with... I wouldn't say the windows are excessively tight, but, you know, you've got windows where you need to be doing specific things like dodging, jumping, parrying. And I managed to get through quite a bit of the game while we were playing, and I don't think the input lag really caused too many issues. There were one or two times where I was like, oh, you know, I probably died there due to input lag rather than because I pressed the button too slowly. But a lot of the time it was fine. I beat two quite difficult bosses, quite a tough mini boss or two as well.
Yep.
I haven't really been following Sekiro much. I've only really done what I've been playing on Moogle's PC, and I haven't watched much gameplay before, but Moogle tells me that one of the bosses I fought was considered as one of the harder ones in the game,
Yeah.
and I
Which
beat
one?
it.
Double Monkey. Double Gape is considered probably the hardest boss in the game by a lot of people,
Yeah.
I think.
It was
He's
alright.
cool. I like him. He's
Fine.
good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Even with input lag at 30 frames per second across Parsec, it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, not to sound like that Catsman who always says stuff like this, which is what I do sound like, but I mean, it's a Souls game. There's already effectively like a second of input lag on everything because you move so goddamn slowly in that game.
Sekiro is much better for that, actually.
Yeah, it's a lot faster than the other ones.
I have to say that because there's some Catsman fan out there who'll be disappointed if I did.
There's a clause in the
Take
contract.
the opportunity to wail on Sekiro. No.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about cloud gaming. So I think Stadia will be good, actually. I don't think it'll be that bad. If you can play that sort of level of game on not even Google official servers, like from one man's computer to another, it'll be fine.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm the guy who, when he was buying a monitor, made a little Excel spreadsheet, which included the latency of every monitor that he was buying and included that in his decision of which monitor to buy.
I feel like you see the world in a higher frame rate than I do, Catsman, because like there have been times when we've been playing stuff and you've been like, this isn't running at 60, and I've been like, what?
How do you tell? I can tell more than you.
I played a lot of TF2 back in the day, and one day I realized that I'd had VSync turned on by mistake.
You fool.
I turned it off and I immediately shot to like the top of every scoreboard for ages, whereas previously I'd been a mediocre TF2 player. My skills at TF2 had basically tripled by turning off VSync.
Yep.
And it was then that I began on my long quest to minimize all forms of input latency.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. Did we want to do a game and then close, or have we got anything else on the agenda?
I don't really have a game for you. Do you?
You told me not to prepare anything because you were going to do it.
Yeah, but I don't actually have anything.
Yeah, but he lied, because that's what he does.
This has been Gentlemen Discussing Video. I have been your host, Specs, here with Catsman.
I didn't think we were introducing everyone. Or
Mooglepies.
Introducing everyone.
Bye!
Rusty.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Shiny. And Wooly.
See you later.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
That's right.
Rock me, baby. Baby. Rock me, baby. Baby.
That's right.
Baby. 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 Baby.
Specs, can you tell us about your dreams? Because I'm told that they've been quite entertaining recently.
Do you want some of the ones that we pinned to the Dream channel? I'll
Can you give
read
me
them
some
out.
dream highlights?
I had a dream that was set during World War II. I was a spy at an airbase and doing my best work to gather intel, and that was to prevent the Nazis from winning the war. At one point, I met Hitler and followed him back to a place on the airbase where he was presenting awards for something, and the final category just had a little girl in it, so she wasn't up against anyone and she was going to win by default. And for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to step into whatever competition was going on to prevent this 6-year-old, who happened to look like Cereza from Bayonetta, from winning the trophy. So I walked up to Hitler and my plan was to explain to him how I'm an English national but I've defected and now I love Germany. And it was all going well until I get in front of Hitler and I open my mouth and realize I can't speak German.
It gets better. It gets better.
So it's kind of like a panel interview. Hitler's there with a couple of other like high-ranking generals, and my French and German teachers from high school were there as well. I started off talking in English, saying I'm going to start by saying I'm English, and then I quickly transitioned into speaking French, even though I knew I should be speaking German. And my French teacher told me, "You're speaking French, by the way." So I tried to continue in German, but like it was worse than I would have been able to do even in real life. So I said, fuck it, I'll just continue in English. So at the end, Hitler just leaves without saying anything, and he gave me this look that said, "I know you're a spy, you're a fucking idiot." So I follow Hitler across an airfield and into a small room that's got like some war propaganda pinned up on the wall, and it's got a sofa. And Hitler turns to me and says in English, "What the fuck was that all about?" Then he runs at me, and I'm afraid that he's gonna like kill me. And he jumps on me like koala style and just starts tickling me. So I start tickling Hitler back, and we're eventually just rolling around on the floor laughing and tickling each other. And that was the end of the dream.
And then you woke up and needed to pee.
I woke up and needed to pee.
That's like one of those dreams where you're back at school and you haven't studied for your exam, only more.
I never had this kind of dream, to be honest.
There was a good one I had recently as well, where me and a friend joined a Unity game jam that was being set up and hosted by Yoko Taro, the guy who made Nier and Drakengard and stuff. And he had a video where he was supposed to be like outlining the rules of the game jam and stuff, but he just appeared on screen, yelled, and did like a high kick. He didn't have the big moon mask on that he normally wears. He just looked like Shinsuke Nakamura from the wrestling. But he says, "You know why people call me Yoko Taro? It's because my name is Yoshimura Kotaro, and so when people see me, they say, 'Yo, Kotaro!'"
I feel like this is all quite on brand so far.
Yeah, I agree. Having Yoko Taro appear in your dream is like a good sign. That's like a blessing.
I was looking through notes on my phone the other day because I had like a backlog of 50 and I was deleting them, and I came across notes for one of my dreams. Where was it? It was one that was like set up like a video game. The Feeder. That was a fucked up one.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying about
The Feeder
this.
was really good. Yeah, the game and the dream was called The Feeder. So it was a Resident Evil 7 kind of setting with a super big dilapidated house in like the middle of nowhere. The whole thing was an escort stealth mission, except the player character was blind and you're the one being escorted.
A stealth mission where you're blind.
Yeah. So it started like if you've done the escape room DLC where you're like strapped to the bed and you have to escape bit, if anyone knows what that is. But you have to escape before the feeder gets there with the help of the other person. The other person is guiding you, so you can't see anything. So every time the feeder gets near to you, even if it's out of eyesight, it starts to scream. And when that happens, you know, you have to like run away and hide or find a way to stun it. The guy who was guiding me told me to bait with an alligator by sitting on top of the alligator and waiting for the feeder to grab it and then jump away. But because I was fucking blind, I didn't know when the feeder was going to grab it. So I just got a game over and had to try again. And then it turned out in the end, the twist ending was that the feeder is actually a parasite that eats different hosts. And the scream is the host body sensing that the parasite has tracked you down, trying to help you get away.
That's a great twist.
Yeah, it was a fucking great dream. And I had like a full character design of it as well. That was really cool. That was a good dream.
Honestly, it sounds like a good game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought this would be a good game or film when you seen it.
If you can make it good that you're blind, but it's just not black everywhere.
If anybody wants to play a game for blind people, there's a game called Shades of Doom that one of my friends used to be really into, which is like a first-person adventure game, but you're blind and you navigate entirely by audio. And it was made actually for blind people.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
It's cool.
I've heard recently about, it was in regards to Killer Instinct on the Xbox One. A load of blind gamers wrote to the guy who did sound design for Killer Instinct, and they were like, we really like your game because we can tell most of the time where things are happening. Like, the sound effects are good enough that we can play your fighting game and have a good time as blind gamers. And they said, we've got these tips for you to make it better for blind people. And he was like, actually, it's not going to hurt the game. And if anything, because these people rely on their hearing so much, it will benefit other gamers as well from being able to hear those audio cues. So it was stuff like when projectile noises stop happening. So usually they would start off loud and then get quieter sort of quite quickly. But they said it would help us to be able to position it if that noise continued for a bit longer. And things like landing from jumps, that needs to be louder so you can tell where you are. Because if you've got positional audio, at least like left and right, you can kind of tell where your character is in space as well.
There is a reasonably sized community of blind gamers.
it's interesting to see like where you can make a difference to blind people for playing video games. And there's stuff like challenge runs where people will play Ocarina of Time blindfolded. I've seen a guy do that before because he specifically wanted to help a blind gay guy to play the game.
A blind gay guy?
Not a blind gay guy, just a blind guy. The sound design on Ocarina of Time is good because like you can tell what sort of surface you're walking on. You can hit the floor with a stick to tell like what type of floor you're on, or if you're near a wall, so that you know you've gone a good distance to like turn and stuff. So yeah.
I want to tell you about my dream. I had recently moved into a house that had 2 bedrooms and no bathroom. And in order to use the bathroom, I had to go over to my really sketchy neighbor's house. My neighbor was really sketchy, and they were really stingy about letting me use the bathroom. And they were like, "Oh, when you come, you know, you got to bring your own toilet paper and stuff." There, which I thought was not on, considering my house didn't even have a bathroom. I needed a crap, but I knew that nearby the Fortnite bus was leaving, but it ended up being one of those craps that, you know, just takes a while. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss the Fortnite bus. And I get out and I run down, and the Fortnite bus is just driving away off in the distance. For some reason, it wasn't like a flying bus. It was just a regular bus. And I start talking to like the organizers of the Fortnite bus, like, well, is there any other way I can get there now that I've missed the bus? Will there be another bus? And they're like, no. One of them's like, well, I guess you could get the train. And I'm like, well, where would I have to get the train to? And they're like, Maidenhead.
Maidenhead, eh?
That's where Fortnite is.
That's true, that is, isn't it?
Fortnite is set in Maidenhead.